Hello investigators and welcome to Until the End of Time. My name is Veronica and this may be one of the last preview videos for this preview season. If I'm not mistaken, the last previews are scheduled for this coming week. So expect one more video after this one to round things out, and that's going to be it for the Scarlet Keys preview season. I'll probably start covering the contents of the box as soon as I actually physically own the box. There might be a bit of a gap in my previous schedule as a result, but I have some ideas of how to fill that. More on that near the end of the video. In any event, today's video is going to be covering 5 new cards from various sources. We have the upgraded Ceremonial Sickle, previewed by playing board games. We have the research note from Los Archivos de Arkham. We have Breaking and Entering Level 2 from Miskatonic University Radio. We have Soul Sanctification from Reddit. And we have Astral Mirror, previewed by the Whisperer in Darkness. We're starting off with the Ceremonial Sickle Level 4. This was previewed by playing board games. Card is an upgrade to the level 0 sickle we already saw in the announcement article for this cycle. It costs 4 XP, it has the same resource cost, same trades, and still takes up a hand slot. It has an additional combat icon, and it now has 2 changes to its fight ability. The first mode gives +3 skill value instead of +1, and the second mode, when it defeats an enemy, readies the sickle and removes all doom from it. I think the reception of this card was somewhat lukewarm and not entirely unearned, though I think there are some combos with this card that we haven't seen yet. The main challenge I perceive with this card is that it is a 4 XP weapon that only deals 2 damage per attack, and not only that, it also exhausts, so it can't even do unlimited level 2 damage attacks. Because of that, it's a bit tricky. There are a lot of other weapons that may be a little bit more competitive for that same slot and XP cost. But yeah, it's clearly meant for Amina to use. Her stats are pretty low, so getting that big +3 skill boost is nice, but then you might struggle to remove all the doom with the bottom ability when you're only getting a +1 combat bonus. Given the existence of the level 3 Enchanted Blade, I think a lot of Mystics will default to that, or just their spells. However, I think there is a lot of combo potential with the level 4 Ceremonial Sickle, and I'm not sure if the discussion so far has really taken that into account. Using Amina's Word of Woe, you can get a bonus action, which is essentially an extra attack at +1 damage and +3 skill value. And if you are then clearing all doom from it, the added doom of Word of Woe doesn't matter. Likewise, Ghastly Possession can be a 3 wild icon skill card for this card that places a doom on it. If you use that on the bottom ability, you're basically placing a doom and then immediately removing all the doom. If we get more cards like Ghastly Possession, I could certainly see that there are builds that want Ceremonial Sickle just for that remove all doom ability. I think that is the meat of this upgrade. The problem is, in order to properly gauge how powerful that is, we're going to need to see how good the other doom cards are, and we just don't know that yet. So keep an eye out on this one for once we actually have the full box, but for now I understand why reception has been a little mixed. Alright, up next we have Research Notes, previewed by Los Archivos de Arkham. This is a 0 XP, 1 cost Seeker asset with a single intellect icon. It takes up a hand slot and it has Item, Tome, and Science traits. It has 2 abilities. The first is a reaction that triggers after a player card ability places 1 or more clues on your location to place that many resources on Research Notes as evidence. Now, let's actually just pause here before we look at the second ability. Player card effects that places clues are pretty far and few between, and they're all in Seeker. They include the previewed Captivating Discovery, which lets you drop clues to search cards from your deck, but there are in total 4 cards with this effect. 5 if you count Joe's Weakness, though I'm not entirely sure if that one's supposed to count. The ones that we do know are Forewarned, which lets you cancel Treachery, Quick Study, which gives you a +3 skill value for a test, and Dr. William T. Mallison, which lets you redraw your encounter card. This is a bit of a Seeker archetype that hasn't really gotten any support yet, and so now we are seeing a card that actually rewards you for dropping your clues. Obviously this card is going to have an ability that lets you spend the evidence, but if we just look at like this, it's actually a pretty great Daryl card. So Daryl can spend evidence from any card to reduce the difficulty of this test by 2. He could play all of the cards that I just mentioned, and he has clue compression like it's going out of style, so he can pick up all the clues he's dropping very quickly. I think Daryl really likes any reliable source of evidence. And one of the things that I've noticed in the little bit of play that I've seen with Daryl is that his codec is a bit reliant on what the encounter deck pulls. And so getting a source of evidence that you completely control seems very nice for him. And I think this actually completely changes a couple of assumptions that I had about Daryl and which cards he's running, because I think this is a very powerful card and might even be competing with the Hawkeye folding camera for me for that hand slot. However, there is of course a second ability, and it's actually really strong. So as an action, you can test Intellect 0. For each point you succeed by, you may spend 1 evidence to discover 1 clue at your location. This is pretty great. It gives you back the tempo loss of dropping clues. You can drop your clues and then spend a single action to try to pick them all back up, assuming you can pass that Intellect 0 test by enough to get all those clues in one go. It's actually much stronger than it seems at first glance, because there's no restriction on where you use it. You don't have to use it in the same location that you drop the clues. So, for example, you could drop all your clues on a one-shot location, pick them up with something like a deduction where you're fairly certain you're going to pass because you have a super high intellect anyway, and then you move into a 4-shot location and just test intellect 0, and you just have to pass by 4 to pick up 4 clues in one go. Seems incredible. I think this card is very strong. The fact that it's a tome means that Daisy likes it. Research librarian? Is it research librarian? Research assistant? I don't remember what it's called. The guy who can tutor a tome for you. There's a bunch of combos with it. I really like it. I think it's a fantastic card. And it's a neat little combo engine. With a bunch of cards that are already pretty strong, right? Like, I can imagine just playing Forewarned to get a little bit of evidence once every now and then is pretty good. But especially if you're going quick study, where you might be using this every turn to drop clues, which you're then just quickly picking back up, that's fantastic. I am excited to run this card. I think pretty much every Daryl deck will at least consider running this, just because evidence is such a powerful resource for him. But I think this is just going to go in whoever can take it if they're willing to commit to the clue dropping ability, which that's cool, right? We're getting a new archetype that we haven't really explored before. Next up, we have Breaking and Entering Level 2. This was previewed by the Miskatonic University Radio, and it is a upgrade to the Level 0 Breaking and Entering, which we saw in Innsmouth. It's following a fairly familiar pattern by now. Cheap Shot and Slip Away have both received the identical pattern of upgrades, where this is a level 2 version of a level 0 event. They both cost the same, 2 resources, they have the same icons, intellect and agility. They're both tricks. They both investigate, adding your agility to your skill value, and they both automatically evade if you succeed by a certain amount, though for the upgraded one you only have to succeed by 1, whereas with the original you have to succeed by 2. And then the main juice of the upgrade is that if you succeed by 3 or more, you return it to your hand at the end of your turn. Also, like the original, it doesn't provoke attacks opportunity. This card is strong in a wide range of investigators. I think it was already pretty strong in just about anyone, because Breaking and Entering was already just a great rogue event that a lot of people like to play. It put a lot of action compression together. It was a very nice way to get out of dodge and still make progress in the scenario. But there are a couple of investigators that, of course, use this better than most, and so I'm going to highlight them. Kamani Jones loves the automatic evade that isn't on an enemy that they are engaged with, and that's a big deal. If an enemy is engaged with another investigator, usually you have to waste an engage action to pull them off of them, but with Breaking and Entering, you can just investigate, evade them, use your free triggered ability to engage that enemy, and now you're set up to do that second evade, which can discard them. This also works on aloof enemies, and it of course works with everybody's favorite bearded man, Chuck Fergus. If you're more into spying, Trish Scarborough loves this for being able to investigate without provoking attacks opportunity, and she has no problem getting her skill values high enough to reliably succeed by 3. Something like Janae or Lola Santiago are fantastic ways to get her intellect and agility up. Finally, one investigator who's perhaps easy to miss but very powerful with this card is Rita Young. Rita is somebody who can take Trick level 0 to 3, so she can take this, and Rita loves the level 0 Breaking and Entering because it lets her investigate with her agility, which is her highest stat, and also use her reaction ability to deal damage or move after she successfully investigated. However, With the level 2, she can actually do even more because it repeats itself and she can get a very high agility, so she has no problem with that succeed by 3 either. Because you can use this every turn, you could potentially combo it with, what else? Scavenging. Now, scavenging with Rita hasn't really been a thing before, even though there were other ways of investigating with your agility. There wasn't really a way of doing that reliably and repeatably and affordably. But because breaking and entering is a trick, we can use Crafty to pay for it. And this lets you use a scavenging Rita build that does things like get back ice picks. And honestly, I'm pretty excited to try that. Rita's not an investigator that I usually gravitate towards, but I might try this deck. It seems very fun. Next up, we get undoubtedly the strangest card of this video, and possibly the strangest card in the entire box. It's Soul Sanctification. This is a level 3 permanent exceptional ritual previewed by Reddit. It reads, for every point of damage and or horror you heal in excess of an investigator's current damage or horror, place 1 resource on Soul Sanctification as an offering. This still counts as healing. Free trigger, spend an offering, you get +2 skill value for this test, limit twice per test. So this card turns excess healing into unexpected courages. It seems pretty great with any effect that lets you heal both damage and horror at the same time, like Medical Student, because it can be used to heal whatever you need to heal right now without wasting the other healing, as well as an effect that can heal multiple damage or horror at once, something like a Hello Chalice perhaps. I'm not sure on this card. I've seen a lot of people be quite excited for it, and I have to admit, I don't quite get it. I think it's fine, like I don't think it's a bad effect, but it feels very excessive to me. I don't run healing cards because I want to get unexpected courages. I run healing cards because I want to get healed and not die. And the fact that you have to heal excess of an investigator's current damage or horror means that I imagine a lot of the time you're going to have to heal a lot in order to get back up to full, in order to then start getting benefit from this card that you spent 6 XP on. So on that side, I'm not super excited for this card and just like any random old investigator. But it is worth saying that Vincent Lee is the seeker for this cycle, and his colleague Carolyn, of course, also probably really likes this because it lets them trigger their abilities without having to have actual damage or horror on the person. A lot of the time, Carolyn decks would run Arcane Research or In the Thick of It just to have some horror to heal, so at the start of the scenario, they can actually do something with their ability. Soul Sanctification takes that requirement away, which is nice. Also for thematic reasons, you don't have to hurt yourself in order for the doctor to help you. It's just kind of a nice thing. But I see this much more as a late campaign pickup for helping you, like, it's more of a luxury purchase. Maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but this feels like a card that I have to experiment with before I'm like able to fully judge it. It seems weird, and it's also got some rules questions, like are you even able to heal somebody who's fully healed? Like, is that changing the game state? I don't have an answer to that right now. I think you'll be allowed to because it still counts as healing, but it's unusual and I think it's a cool effect. I'm gonna say that, but I'm not sure what the place is for this. We'll get back to it once I've had a chance to try it. And then finally, we have what I think is my most excited card for this video, which is Astral Mirror. This is a 2 XP, 3 cost Mystic asset with a single combat icon. It is a ritual, and it takes up the body slot. For each of your arcane slots that are empty, you have 1 additional hand slot. So you're trading your arcane slots for your hand slots, but you're not losing your arcane slots and they're not being like filled. You may take up an additional action during your turn, which may only be used to play an asset into one of your hand slots. Now, importantly, there was a card we talked about last video which cared about the number of empty arcane slots. This is obviously comboing with that. I didn't know this card existed back then, but go back and edit, back in that we now have an archetype that cares about not having anything in your arcane slots. So who wants to run this? Curiously enough, I think this is actually a great card for off-class mystics more so than main-class mystics. Obviously, Amina likes it because she has a lot of hand-slotted items and she doesn't want to necessarily run spells that use her willpower. But more so, I think off-class mystics who don't really care for their spells might really love this, because arcane slots are in this weird position where they don't really their value depends a lot on your class access and a lot of whether or not you're a mystic, honestly. And so someone like Sister Mary might just be running this to get an extra machete out or an extra weapon out, so she can also be running her Book of Psalms to add more bless tokens, and maybe a Winchester if she's running that build. If you're somebody like Daisy, this might take the role of your Arcane Enlightenment. This ritual costs 2 and give you traded an Arcane slot for a hand slot and give you +1 maximum hand size. Both of those are reasonable things to have, but the Astral Mirror also gives you that additional action, which is very nice. And if we're talking about extra action, there's probably no one who likes that more than Patrice. I've said in multiple previous videos that I think Patrice's main drawback or main obstacle is her being limited to 3 actions a turn, and so having to spend her 5 cards in hand every turn on those 3 actions in a clever way. Astral Mirror just gives her an extra action, and so now you can run her Violin, her Fire Axe, maybe an Investigating Tool, and a Ice Pick or something if you're scavenging with it, and just don't worry about the amount of assets you have to play, because one of the biggest drawbacks with extra slot cards is that it takes a lot of actions to play all your cards. Astral Mirror goes, well then I just give you an extra action to play it, how's that? I think the 3 cost in this is totally fair, and keep in mind you can engage the soul this, so yeah. Finally, there's one kind of dark horse player for this who I think loves this card, and that's Lola Hayes. I think people might be sleeping on her still a little, but I think a lot of people want to try her after the recent debut. And this card is fantastic for Lola. Again, you don't need to run cards in your Arcane slot if you're someone like Lola who isn't the main class Mystic. And neither of these abilities are triggered abilities. They're all both constant abilities, so they work even if she's not a Mystic. So you just get a bonus action every turn. I love this card for Lola, and I actually expect that it will be kind of a Lola staple. I think you need to have a really good reason not to just run this in her, because with something like Improvisation, you can just switch into Mystic, play this, switch out of Mystic, never touch your Mystic class again if you don't want to, and just get extra hand slots and extra actions, which I like. That's so good. So yeah, love Astral Mirror, really big on this card. Really excited to play this. Oh, right, and there's one last thing. So I actually talked to somebody who I know would watch my video, so if you're watching, you know who you are. Hi, I don't know if you want me to say your name on video, so I won't. But we just finished Edge of the Earth, and we're looking at our next Investigator pairing, and I was thinking of doing Tony. And it struck me while I was kind of putting my deck together that it is great for any off-class Mystic, it's even better for somebody who just doesn't have Mystic access at all. But of course, you need some way to get this. So if you're playing any rogue who has a bunch of hand slot cards, maybe consider Black Market so that your Mystic friend can put this in their deck so you can take it from them. I know a friend of mine is thinking about doing Gloria when we play, and I'll be playing Tony, so I might try to talk him into playing his Astral Mirror so that we can get some combos over, because again, Tony just gets an extra action to play his guns, and then he has 2 extra slots to hold his guns in. That's fantastic, right? This is a better quick draw holster in a lot of ways. So yeah, exciting card, a lot of team play possibilities, just a lot of deck building options. It's not great in main class Mystics because they want to actually use their Arcane slots, but yeah, it's bonus actions and more slots. It's very powerful combination of abilities on one card. So that's the 5 cards. Before I sign off, I just want to quickly give a little bit of talk about how I'm going to be going forward, because I know a lot of you are just here for the preview season, and I'm totally happy with that. Happy to have you here. Glad a lot of people have been watching my videos. Glad they've been doing well. Glad you've enjoyed them. But, the last previews are coming up. At time of recording, I think we know that... is it Optimal Play? I think it's Optimal Play is doing the last known. There might be some secret preview that we haven't heard of, but that would be very unlikely. And so most likely by this time next week, we'll have seen all the officially scheduled previews. I'm going to do another preview, recapping the last ones we've seen. There should be 6 more from this time forward. And that's going to be it for preview season. I know that probably people are going to get boxes quite quickly thereafter. I won't immediately start previewing stuff. I'm going to take a little break first, and part of that is that I'm just going to be starting the next campaign play along, which will be on the 17th. If you want to join me for that, that's exciting. Join us in the Discord, discord.gg/mythosbusters. We're playing through the Edge of the Earth campaign. We are you're gonna have a lot of fun. It's all campaign play along is always a lot of fun, so I really recommend you check that out if you haven't. Basically, it's like this sort of semi-weekly community playthrough where you all talk about your experiences and chat about your decks, and it has a limited card pool, so you can't just build whatever. You have to kind of like restrict yourself, which actually breeds a lot of new deck building ideas, a lot of creativity. So I'm gonna be focusing on that, which is probably gonna mean that I'm taking a little break after the last recap, because I also just need it. Like, I've been making one video a week for the last, or multiple videos a week, often for like the last couple of months. It's been a lot of fun, but I'm also just kind of spent. And I'm also working on the Cyclopean Foundations videos. We've done 3 scenarios so far, and they're really exciting, but again, that's also taking a lot of energy, so I'm hoping to do those once I'm done with kind of Scarlet Keys first impressions. If I can, I'd like to do a live stream, but I can't promise that right now. There's a lot of factors in that, including just like, am I able to get a box? Because I've pre-ordered one, but we all know that that isn't a guarantee. If there's any news there, I will let you know, and I'm hoping to have a little bit more information by next video. So this is just kind of where my head is at this moment. Thank you for watching. Thank you all for supporting me. It's been super fun, and you know, I'm doing better than I ever expected. So appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Appreciate everybody who's been commenting and liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you until the end of time.